Today is March 1st. Our text is Numbers 18 through 20. And I think there are some very significant themes that we see throughout these three chapters that are important for us to catch. And if I could just kind of encapsulate those themes, it would be the word I would use is consistency. Consistency, namely, of God. And the kind of the inverse of that is the inconsistency of man. Of us, those who God has created. And so we see chapter 18 open with God speaking to Aaron about the duties and the role of priests and Levites. And one of the themes of consistency that we see here is if you read the first few verses of Numbers 18, you see God using words to describe the responsibility of the priest and the Levites, or namely the priests, to work and to keep and to guard. I don't know about you, but that sends my mind back to Genesis 1. And we see similar language being used in God giving the command to Adam to work and to keep and to guard the garden. And just as the garden, the tabernacle is a place where God has chosen graciously to dwell among his people, to relate with his people. And we see that just as in the garden, that in the tabernacle, God's very serious about how those places are maintained, how those places are governed. And so this is very significant. I wonder if Adam was almost like the first priest. That would be really cool to continue studying. And then chapter 19, we see these laws for purification, even when it has to do with death. And we just kind of see this theme continue that we've already seen established in Leviticus, that God desires for his people to be distinct and set apart and pure and holy, just as he is holy. And then chapter 20 opens with a death, the death of Miriam. And then the people are back out in the wilderness. And just as the generation before them, they're grumbling, they're thirsty, they want water. And so God gives instructions to Moses and Aaron on how to satisfy this thirst, and gives them very clear instructions. And then in verse 11 of chapter 20, Moses strikes the rock twice. And it seems that elicits the response from God in verse 12, that maybe God did not tell Moses to strike it twice, but once. And notice what God doesn't say. He doesn't say, because you did not obey me. He says, because you did not believe me. And that act of disbelief is connected, it seems, you do your own study here, as we always say, it seems that act of disbelief is associated with Moses' act of disobedience. And that's a pretty important thing for us to catch, because in the scriptures, faith is often associated with obedience. Now, here's what I'm not saying, that our righteousness before God, our right standing, depends on what we do. Not by no means. That's not the gospel. The gospel is what has been done for us. And so we're very clear on that. However, all throughout, especially the New Testament, we see that the proper response to the faith that we've been given by God, if that faith be genuine, produces obedience, produces desire to follow Jesus and to obey Jesus. And so that's pretty significant. But here's the beautiful thing. God remains merciful. He remains merciful. God remains consistent. Even when Moses and Aaron and the people remain inconsistent, God remains consistent. Even when you and I are inconsistent, God remains consistent. He is consistently merciful and gracious to us. Paul tells Timothy that if we are faithless, he is faithful. But then he says, for he cannot deny himself. Isn't that interesting? It's not, Paul's emphasis there is not that he cannot deny us, which he can't and he won't, but the basis of God's mercy and faithfulness to us is not because of the changingness of us, but because of the unchangingness of him, because he is faithful. He cannot deny who he is because he's faithful. And so Numbers speaks to us in really great ways. And I pray that you've been spoken to today by Numbers. Have a wonderful day.